Hello, everyone. My name is Bruno Guicardi, and I'm here to host a new thought leadership web series called Straightforward, which will bring behind the scenes, from the trenches, inside information around the topic of digital transformation and its many facets, including modern organizational designs, agile at scale, innovation at scale, and how to actually deploy those changes in complex organizations. I'm going to be interviewing leaders of the industry here that found solutions for those specific challenges that maybe you can take them and make them insightful for your own organizations and teams. So looking forward to connecting with you each month. Stay tuned. Hello, everybody. We're here today with Vala Afshar for this episode of Straightforward. I'm very excited to be discussing here with Vala one topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which is the human side of digital transformation. Although we're, CI&T is a technology company, technology is our bread and butter. I think it's way harder, that part of the challenge, the human side, than the tech challenge. So we're here with Vala, with a chief digital evangelist at Salesforce, to help us, find our ways in this very challenging topic. So Vala, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell why you think this is a relevant and interesting topic to you too.
Thank you, Bruno. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you on a pretty important, deep topic, the people side of transformation. Both of us know as practitioners and business leaders that it's not companies that disrupt, it's people that disrupt. And, before joining Salesforce as a research storyteller, chief evangelist, I was the chief marketing officer for a technology company and chief customer officer. I was responsible for services and marketing for a company about $1 billion in revenue and a few thousand employees. And I can tell you, in my 20 years experience as a practitioner, as someone who had the privilege of leading teams and growing businesses, when I think about success in the order of importance, I start with culture and then people and process, and lastly, technology. So you and I are technologists, and we've been building technology throughout our entire career. But without the right people, without the right culture, without the right processes, no amount of technology is going to help your organization or company grow. But this is an open book, the people part. You and I are still students. So for those of you listening, stop looking for experts when it comes to the dynamic of humans and transformation. I don't believe there are experts. I think they're just folks that are very curious and they're trying to stay teachable and adaptable. And if anything, we learned over the last 2.5 years, experiencing something that was once in a lifetime experience for us, an incredibly harmful, deadly pandemic. It was, a realization that the most important thing about all of this is people. So stay curious, stay empathetic, and try to learn as much as you can, because things are changing quite fast.
Yeah. So you touch a very important topic that is, it's an open book, right? So there's no blueprint on how to do this, right? Do this right. So there's no, unfortunately, there's no, book to follow. It's all being built as we speak here. There are experiences that people are successful, and unfortunately, there are way more failures than successes. But hopefully, we can learn from those as well. And what we know is actually the old formula, of Frederick Taylor, for standardization and specialization that creates a lot of, that was useful for 150 years for manufacturing of goods, doesn't quite fit this new world of digital innovation and moving fast. It's not quite fit for speed and adaptability. Right, so we need a new book of knowledge for how to work, how to work and how to, coordinate and articulate work in mainly in complex environments. Right? So that's we're kind of proud and very excited to discuss here, like how you do this. Right? So our research, by the way, says like it's not only the hardest part of the transformation, it's actually the one that I can offer the best value. Right. So our research tells us that 2/3, around 60%, 2/3 of the potential speed gain that you can get in a transformation is actually coming from how to organize work, right? So how to create flow and remove dependencies of functions and silos, right? And less on implementation of technology per se. Right? So that's why we think it's a very important topic. You cannot tackle digital transformation only the technology part without tackling how to organize organizational design and organizational work and decision making. Have to tackle there. So really exciting to tap into your knowledge of this topic. How you're being advising clients that Salesforce clients to actually tap into those how to create flow, how to create Spotify call them tribes, teams that are under one roof, trying to remove dependencies and move faster. Right, so that's I'm really curious what your experience has been, and how critical that's been for large clients of Salesforce and large implementations.
Sure, I love the language you use. I love the words you use because, you use words like silo, you use words like flow. These are super important words in my research. So I just want to step back and just tell your audience, I am an immigrant refugee. So my company, my family abruptly moved when I was 10 years old to the US. And as a refugee throughout my life, the first 40 years of my life, I had silo mentality. And by the way, I believe silos not only stunt your career and your organizational potential, but they kill companies. 62% of Fortune 500 companies have disappeared since year 2000 in the last 22 years. These are the biggest companies in the world have disappeared, and they will continue to disappear given the pace of change. So silo, by definition, is to capture resources, knowledge, budget, headcount, protect those resources, and try to extract as much value from those resources. The opposite of silo is flow. And as companies become larger, I have noticed that they start to need more automation, more autonomy. They lean more into technology. And so they start to resemble living organisms like you and I, people. Humans are quite automated. There's a lot of autonomy in our complex system that makes up living organisms. And we're flow-based. We breathe oxygen through our lungs. On average, 60 to 100 beats a minute. Our heart disseminates goodness throughout our bodies. So the pulmonary system is the lungs, the cardiovascular system is the heart, and the systemic subsystem, which is our arteries and veins. Oxygenated blood goes through our veins, deoxygenated blood through our arteries. And the combination of pulmonary, cardiovascular, and systemic is our circulatory system. Now, the lungs and the heart are just pumps. They bring in goodness and they share to ensure we stay alive. When I think of sales, service, commerce, marketing, they're just pumps. They're departments and companies that capture information, analyze, and then disseminate goodness to keep the company growing. In our bodies, we have filters to remove waste. When we talk about advancements like machine learning, AI, all we're trying to do is improve the signal to noise ratio and make sure proper information is disseminated through the business. We as living organisms need enriching environments. We need food and water and oxygen to stay alive and to grow. Companies like yours and mine, we have built ecosystems, we have built platforms, we have built learning communities. At Salesforce, it's Trailhead or the App Exchange or Salesforce Ventures. We have incredible enriching environments. So there's biological lessons that companies can learn from in order to successfully create that level of automation and autonomy. Most analyst firms look at hyper-automation as one of the key success factors for companies for the next coming decades. But at the end of the day, this flow-based mindset is critically important, and it starts at the individual level. And there are certain principles that I have found looking at the fastest growing companies that are clients of Salesforce in terms of how they apply design thinking principles based on flow optimization, which is maybe a fancy way of just saying remove friction. Friction in business generally tends to be not a good thing. And in fact, friction in your career is not a good thing. So how do you precisely identify points of friction and deliberately remove friction so that you optimize flow of value? Again, one other lesson that's been clear during the pandemic, that companies that are growing, companies like yours, are able to create value at the speed of need. Your customers' need, your customers' needs. You and I don't get to decide what that speed is. It's our clients. So speed is another word that you used, which is super important because I think it's really one of the key currencies in a decentralized digital first economy. But to achieve optimal speed, you have to design for movement. You look like an athlete, so you would probably recognize this. In a 4x100 relay at the pro level, at the professional level, and you look like a runner. The first leg of the race is sometimes 1.5 seconds slower than the second, third, and fourth because the runner is at a start position. Whereas in the second, third, and fourth, they're moving before the baton is handed to them. It's a lesson in design for movement. My company and yours during the pandemic, we were able to immediately shift our employees to work from home. The reason Salesforce at the time, we were about 50,000 people. How does a 50,000 person company move to work from home over a weekend? Because we're a cloud first company. All our business applications can be accessed by this device. So we were designed for movement. And that's why flow principles are important, because it is a frame of mind that leads to an investment thesis, leads to a culture, and ultimately leads to a point where your business has resiliency. So you can adapt to quick changes like we had to 2.5 years ago.
That's where, in our experience, that's where we see the biggest conundrum, right? It's traditional companies trying to accept the fact that the Taylorist model that's dominated for 150 years, which is based on actually in unit cost and optimize that extraction of value. The functions with people are very specialized in doing a very do one thing and then move over to someone that will do another, turn on the screw and that all the way. But what that gives us in the big picture is actually a very long time to respond to those needs that you mentioned that are, very happening very fast outside the doors of those organizations. Right? So, in our research shows that time we actually measured as in more than 30 of our clients 4 years ago. Hopefully, they're way better now that we're actually helping them. But before we start working, we measured as what we call value stream. It's the time from idea to a push into production of a live digital product, right? So, in that time, in average, it's 28 months. Imagine responding to market at that pace. Needs are changing, and you can respond only in cycles of almost 2.5 years. Right? So the products we're pushing live right now are response to needs that you identified almost 3 years ago. So that compound this, and it's a journey to irrelevance, right? So it's a journey to get out of a Fortune 100, as you said. But for us, we see the biggest realization is actually that the whole model of specialization and standardization has to be put upside down and really favor speed and adaptation and a different way to work, right? So and different ways to make decision and make workflow, right? So to your analogy, there's no projects in the body, right? The body is just organically right. There's no hey, this is the product, this is my business case, 60 page, proving that it's going to bump up, every dollar revenues, and we're going to execute this for 2 years, and then there it is. it's a more organic response to whatever is happening outside, right? So it's
No, absolutely.
And not sure how it's your experience been, but that's that adoption of that mentality, like it really kind of accepting that, and that speed and adaptability has a higher value overall for the organization than just unit cost and standardization. That's actually the biggest challenge we see in board levels and C levels, quite frankly. Not sure what's your experience there.
No, 100%. You're 100%. And if there is a silver lining, which there isn't many, is that the pandemic acted as an accelerant for C-level and board level decision makers in terms of realization that we all had a blind spot to the power of decentralization. In March of 2020 at my company and most companies in the US, there was a light switch, a memo from most likely your CEO that said, you can't come to the office starting Monday. And what we thought may be weeks turned into months, turned into years. And we saw in terms of certain technologies, for example, e-commerce, in a couple of months, May, June, July of 2020, we saw almost a 10-year acceleration of technologies like e-commerce, like ordering online, curbside pickup, contactless payments, QR codes for menus, and so on and so forth. So because of social distancing and health and safety becoming a brand pillar, if you couldn't protect your stakeholders, your employees, your customers, your partners, it would be devastating in terms of earning the trust and loyalty of your community. So technology played an incredibly important role. Most CIOs that I work with, what was their 2024, 25, 26 roadmap became a 2020, 2021 must-have. And many technology companies like yours and mine, we benefited from this accelerated digital transformation. We had record years, and because companies like yours and I, we were in the business of building a digital first, centralized or decentralized ecosystems. But this all goes back to the theme of our conversation, and that being people. Along the way, the pandemic and the acceleration of adoption also created a realization for business leaders that there are some skill gaps. So the folks that we had, the teams that we had, in some cases were not ready to implement new technologies. We didn't have machine learning experts. We didn't have visual commerce experts. We didn't have folks that create adaptive mobile apps that could deliver personalized, fast value. And so today, our research shows that 3 out of 4 employees don't feel they have the skills to keep up with the digital transformation initiatives that their companies want to implement. I recently spoke to the lead technologist at Accenture, Paul Doherty. And all technologists at Accenture work for Paul. And Paul said Accenture believes about 20 to 30% companies are at most about 30% through their journey. Now that's 70 to 80% that's left. That's going to take a decade. This isn't a light switch where you can immediately become digital native company and be able to delight your stakeholders using new emerging technologies. It will be years of hard work. Transformation is incredibly difficult. Now, of course, as you know, when you think about the trust deficit that exists in business, how do you gain loyalty and commitment of your employees or stakeholders when there's a trust deficit? We had the health crisis of a lifetime, which led to an economic crisis, which led to racial and injustice and equality crisis. We still have a climate crisis. We had election year where the top leaders in the government were responsible for mass dissemination of misinformation. All of this compounded to a trust deficit. So what that means is when you look at the fact that there's about 12 million open jobs and individuals are choosing where they work, the hardest part for you and I and business leaders is how do we gain trust so that we could recruit talent and retain talent in order to fight this digital transformation journey that we're going to be on for the next Well, I would say for the entire career for you and I, because this isn't a destination, it's a journey. And so, the people part of the equation turns out to be perhaps the most challenging and most rewarding work that we have to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that brings totally agree on how far we are in the journey and what is the challenge. Like you said, like three quarters of the people are not ready. Like, so they have to embark in this journey and build their skills and their competencies along the way, right? But let me bring a provocation. Like our clients, they want this digital transformation thing done in usually like 18 to 24 months, right? So which kind of like contrasts very drastically with how much time we think we need. Like it's a people development of skills, and sometimes, most of the times, a lot of behavioral change for leadership. So leaders, need to kind of learn how to be less direct and less command and control, and empower those teams that we mentioned, like those product teams or flow teams that actually they need empowerment to actually decide how they do things and what they do. So it's a completely different social contract with leaders. And there's so many things that need to be learned. But my question to you, like, how you advise clients that think that do this digital transformation thing in 18 to 24 months, contrast the reality that this will probably take 5 to 10. So how do you advise them to embrace that conundrum?
So when I have the privilege of sharing my research with senior leaders that are Salesforce customers and partners, I talk about the framework in terms of design thinking based on flow optimization principles. And there are 7 principles that I speak to. And this is a topic that we could spend a lot of time discussing. But the first principle is connection. Understand the importance of connection, which is really predicated on how advanced you are in terms of using data. In most large enterprise, only about 26% of the enterprise applications are connected. So there are many silos that exist in business today. When I think of what my company did during the pandemic, we recognized that the operating system for Salesforce needed to be frictionless and more social and less hierarchical. So we looked at what's the market-leading collaboration tool out there. And so we spent the largest investment in our company history, $28 billion, and we bought Slack. So for us, it was how do we migrate our headquarters to the cloud and create an ability for us to stay connected, us meaning 74,000 of our employees and our customers and partners. So we bought a market-leading connection tool, a social construct tool. And when your business is social, through the fabric of the business, you can hear and see ideas. It's not just the bosses with big titles. It's the big ideas that win, not the big titles. So connection is the first principle. Integration is the second principle, knowing that most of our clients have on-premise customized solutions, and they're also trying to orchestrate multiple clouds. So we looked in the market and we acquired an API connectivity company called MuleSoft, which helped us with integration. So connection, integration. That was an $8 billion investment. Then we looked at, okay, once you're connected and you have the right integration, what is it that you're sharing with your stakeholders? And we realized that, the human mind processes an image 60 times faster than text. So we looked at the best data visualization company that's out there and a market leader, and it was Tableau. And we spent $17 billion acquiring Tableau. Fast forward, in the last 5-6 years, we've acquired, I believe, 55 companies to a tune of $62 billion. A lesson here is that part of speed and personalization and scale and intelligence, these 4 currencies that matter, means you as an organization need to have a hybrid model. You can invest in your core capabilities, and you can have a hybrid strategy in terms of acquiring muscles and skill sets that you may not have. It's Clay Christensen's book, Innovator's Dilemma, that talks about the importance of a hybrid innovation strategy. The 4th principle is mobility. Everything has to be mobile. The 5th principle is continuity, and continuity is measuring your individual excellence, your group and your companies. And as Tom Peters said so eloquently, excellence is not about the next month, the next fiscal quarter, the next year. Excellence is about the next email, the next podcast, the next meeting, the next phone call. Excellence is about the next 5 minutes. So optimization of flow ensures that you meet your service level agreements and you're excellent in every step of the way, at the individual level all the way to the company level. And the last principle is holistic success. When you think about when you think about the business today, it's less about capitalism based on shareholder success and more about capitalism based on stakeholder success. Your company and mine, we view planet Earth as a stakeholder. We invest in making sure that we produce technology and capabilities that are green. We look at customer success and trust and equality and innovation. Our core values are focused not just on our shareholders, but our employees, our customers, our partners, our communities, planet Earth. And all of those together create a framework where you can optimize speed. Because again, every decision you make, every investment that you make, your thoughts, your words, and your actions are completely aligned. And once you have alignment, you can achieve optimal speed. Now, this goes into your recruitment practice as well. And I have to say that my general sense is that companies do not apply enough rigor and precision in terms of hiring talent. And more importantly, they don't apply the deliberate rigor to recognize, reward, and grow the careers of their existing talent. And so if I think about threats that exist in business, yes, speed, personalization, scale, security, all of those things are must-have pillars. But unless you can retain your best talent and you have a certain framework that celebrates your talent, it's going to be hard to compete. There's a war on talent right now. And all companies, including successful companies, growing companies like yours and mine, we have to be very deliberate in terms of how we take care of our employees.
And it's amazing how that topic that eventually is connected to the flow and impact, right? So we see a lot of our employees, being poached by other companies and more traditional companies, and sometimes paying ridiculously amount of money more than we could afford. But they don't leave, and the main explanation they give us, I don't want to be a cog in a machine, right? And what does that mean? It means here, I see the impact of my work in a way more, I feel rewarded by, being able to influence, and I do things and I see the results right away, right? It has to do with the flow that we're talking, because when you're in a cognitive machine, what it means you're so in the middle of a very long cycle, you don't even see the impact of your work, right? So if you don't see your contribution, right, how you're making a difference, and quite frankly, this generation here in Vila, they want to see how they're influencing, how they're contributing to, it's more important than if I'm making a couple bucks more an hour. So that's way more relevant. So creating this environment where actually you empower people to actually make decisions and be influential and have a say and have their contribution heard and felt in the workplace. It's essential to compete in this talent war that you mentioned. So it's amazing how all kind of ties together goes back to the concept of flow and reducing the kind of the cycle of impact and empowering people to actually make that impact by themselves and give them that autonomy.
No, absolutely. And it's so I think of my company, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've hired over 35,000 employees into Salesforce, hired. Now I think about before the pandemic, we're in offices, we have meetings. I remember as a manager, when I would hear a great comment or a question from a young talent, I would seek that person and continue to have a conversation. Over the last 2.5 years, when you and I, most of our meetings have been in this format, and you have young talent that work for you, and then when you're done, you leave the Zoom meeting, so you don't have that random collisions before the meeting or after the meeting. And you and I, I'm sure, have benefited from sponsors in our career. Mentors are great. A coach is great to teach you how to play the game and do it to win. But a sponsor, someone who puts her political and social capital on the line, who's ahead of you in the org, and she's putting you in front of the right people. She's approving your budgets and funding to do great work. In my career, I've benefited tremendously from fantastic, generous sponsors who saw something in me, someone who maybe worked hard, asked good questions, wasn't afraid to admit they made mistakes. When you think about the disruption of flow, when you're working remote and you don't have that opportunities to be a sponsor, be a mentor, even have a reverse mentor. You and I are learning from 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. You look much younger than me, but I rely on younger folks to teach me about Web3 and crypto and blockchain and metaverse because they're gamers. They live in that world. So my career massively benefited from junior level folks that knew a lot more about things than I did in terms of new technology. So we have to be, as business leaders, deliberate about recognizing that flow has been disrupted with this work from anywhere, decentralized world. But what you're doing, for example, with your podcast, your goal is to educate and inspire as many people as possible. I want to see more co-founders of growth companies like yourself investing in podcasts, investing in blogging, investing in being active on social. Because not only it reveals your company's culture, you're generous and you want to teach what you learned, but it also helps with this disruption of flow because folks can digitally connect with you. I mean, how many founders of growth technology companies like yourself take the time from your busy calendar to talk about the people part of the business? Not many. So I applaud you for doing that. And I feel privileged to be part of the conversation because it's conversations like this that's going to give that 20-year-old graduate from college and university some hope that, yes, one of the benefits of working in not a giant company is that I matter, that the founder can see me and give me a safe place to innovate and grow my career. So I think flow in terms of career progression and building trust and commitment with our stakeholders is perhaps the most important work we can do.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing, like how digital can actually help us connect and shortcut, the lengthy, levels of hierarchy and kind of.
It flattens the org. It really flattens the org. Access to a founder like yourself on social, on a podcast, on a web. That is how we optimize flow of value.
That's really cool. Vala, I think we're on top of the hour here. Really, thank you so much, for sharing your wisdom here. Really inspiring. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can do this together, soon. Thank you,
Bruno. You've educated, you've inspired me. When you and I connect, I'm the student, you're the teacher. So I look forward to future conversations, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.